Well, we're back. We're back for another week of Simpsons Unhinged. Before we get into the intro, of course, of me talking about what topics I have done, and of course, the playlist is in the it's in the description below. Some big news. Because of the viewership of my Cutter Simpsons Unhinged doing pretty well for YouTube, I have decided instead of the 40 episodes of Cutter Simpsons Unhinged, I am going to add 10 to make it 50. So we're going to be looking at 50 Simpsons episodes instead of 40 in the series. I thought about 40 and then just add on just in case viewership. But since viewership has done pretty well in the first 24 hours after I upload it, I've decided to do something big and we will go up to 50. So it'll affect the old 39 and 40 is now number 49 and 50. So of course I have to fill in the gap in between. All right, so what have we talked about? We talked about Lisa Goes Gaga, terrible episode. We talked about that 90s episode that tried to fix a timeline thing before Bart's birth. We talked about Homer and Bongo and how he started to hate dogs and apes because of this. Homer at the Bat, the famous episode that beats Everyone First Run. We had the Olympics episode in Vancouver. We talked about, of course, Maud's death in season 11 and how it changed Homer and Ned forever. We talked about the 15th season episode, Christmas episode, Homer trying to fix his problems and Ned becoming jealous. The Principal and the Pauper, yes, we talked about that episode because it jumped the shark and we needed to know some context. Homer and Pooh, trying to get an episode without Pooh. Lisa becoming a vegetarian, and of course, them getting Paul McCartney on board. Love is a many strangled thing about The Simpsons telling us that strangling Bart was a good thing. Todd Tidwell, why has felt forsaken me? The one about Todd questioning his faith in God, about Maud's death, and of course, Flanders being a dickwad. Lisa gets an F1. The episode when she works with F1. The gay marriage episode from season 16, which saw Patty come out of the closet and Homer drop his anti-gay fuse just for the almighty dollar. Diary Queen, we talked about the episode in which Bart gets in his diary and thinks he's done well, but Lisa ruins it for him. The Simpsons episode from 2014 from Family Guy. Family Guy's 2014 homage to The Simpsons and how it may be given The Simpsons second wind. Bart, the mother, about Bart and Marge's problem with each other. The Italian Bob with, Sergeant Bob coming through. Kill Gill, about that famous episode that's on Marge goes psychotic and me talking about her psychosis. Homer's Enemy, the famous season 8 episode where Frank Grimes calls Homer out on stuff but dies in the end. We took a look at the Simpsons movie, the episode that saw the movie that about the premise and Homer's actions. We took a look at the Homer and the Hail Mary pass, the Simpsons halftime show thing. We talked about Trash of the Titans and how Springfield moves from place to place. Maybe the FIFA episode, which the Simpsons correctly said FIFA was corrupt and picked Germany beating Brazil in the World Cup. Shot Mr. Burns, we talked about that famous episode and everything to do with it. Trios of Horror, I talked about the bringing things to the source. Homer's phobia, about Homer juggling his anti-gay fuse with thoughts about his son. Talked about Joe Canada, the episode in Canada that saw The Simpsons visit Canada and everything else. The Bart Mangled Banner, which Bart accidentally moves the flag and how they quickly became pariahs. And last episode, we talked about two great season 4 episodes that everyone thinks it's the greatest of all time: March versus Monorail or Last Aspect to Springfield. Today, we're going to be taking a look at a season 37 episode. Yes, we all started. It just started. It just ended season 37. I know The Simpsons with their Disney Plus things. But we're going to be talking about how The Simpsons go with the play button, the fast forward, and the rewind buttons, and how it was a creative mess for season 37. Here we go. Jerkass Homer, Marge's worries, Bart's pranks, Lisa's causes, Maggie not talking a lot, Grandpa being senile, Patty and Selma boring Marge, Arnie Sif is a jerk, Chief Wiggum making things happen. Mr. Burns being a dick. You can never stop the Simpsons. Heaven knows they've been trying for years and they still come back for more. 37 seasons is a bit much, don't you think? It's a crazy Simpsons. Something happens. A do 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 do. This is not a clip show. Have no fear. I've got topics for years. All right, so the first image you see is Homer with hair sitting down and with Bart smiling around him with blocks near his head and Snowball 1, the white cat. Yeah, everyone forgets about Snowball 1 actually existing. Anyway, this was the premise for the episode Bad Boys for Life, question mark. This was the fifth episode of season 37, November 2nd. So they couldn't, so the family can't decide on a TV show to stream. So Lisa asked Marge for a story about when the children are young. So Marge relays the story about Bart and how his bad boy behavior started. At age 6, 4 years earlier, Homer could not interact with Bart, and Bart was not happy about it. So Marge tries to force Homer to bond with Bart. Despite buying self-help books and all that, sometimes that's worse than just trying to figure it out. Homer decides to write on a whiteboard to express his feelings towards Bart. So Bart decides to do the same thing, but Homer stops him because Bart uses his left hand. Homer says, "No, you got to use your right handed," and all that. And he says, "Righty is right. Left, righty is right." Bart says, "No, righty is wrong," and tries to write with his left. Homer then decides to wrap a marker around Bart's hand and basically said, "I don't know what people did without masking tape." So I tried to force Bart to turn right-handed and all that. Bart was angry towards Homer. And then when Nelson bullies Milhouse, Bart figured that Homer was a bully and then set up pranks to give Homer probably a taste of his own medicine. Marge then decided to take him to a psychiatrist, Dr. Stern, who was mad with his behavior and said that Bart deserves to go to a psychiatric facility. So he got a court order to take Bart over Marge's objection. Homer is not so sure about it, but then when he has a nightmare about Bart's life at the facility, Homer knows he had to come away with Bart and before the social workers arrive to take him. So Homer then learns that Bart struggles trying to be righty and all that, and realizes that Bart's better going left-handed. And then Homer then has a speech like he's upset with Bart and all that, but then realizes kind of like in compared to season one, the inaugural episode of The Simpsons said Homer makes that speech about Central Helper saying he's stupid, he's pathetic, he's a Simpson. He makes that same thing, realizing that Bart was just like him, and how Homer had hatred towards Grandpa, and for good reason. I mean, Mona did leave Abe when Homer was young. Abe had to raise Homer by himself, but Abe kind of pissed off Homer, and the cycle of abuse and all that happens. So then, they try to go to Homer's treehouse every time that Homer was upset with Grandpa, and then they head to Canada but are caught by the border guards, turn back, they go to the treehouse. However, the social workers and the SWAT team comes in to pick up Bart, and Marge tries to argue with Dr. Stern, but Dr. Stern said that he had the court order and that Johns Hopkins University, they don't trust sympathy. So anyway, Homer then tells Dr. Stern about the fact that his ham-headed handed activities were basically overreactionary and all that, and says that he's a terrible father. Bart is told on the whiteboard what he wants to happen, and he writes, "I want to be with my fat," and then Homer says, "No, father." Oh, So anyway, all that. Homer and Bart would hug. Dr. Stern went back with social workers, and practically that's how they try to avoid social services. They actually hide when the door is knocked. However, it's Ned trying to offer them cookies as Homer takes their cookies. Well, that's during the credits. So, this was the final episode in which Al Jean was showrunner and all that. Anyway, he would become a consulting producer and all that. So, anyway, you know, this was absolutely amazing and all that. It was watched by over 1.1 million people. Um, One guy gave it 7.5 out of 10, saying he liked Homer and Bart's relationship examination, but thought the ending was a tad rushed and all that, and said that the episode was not funny after the first act. And and of course, there was a fan theory that Bart was left-handed, and it has been shown since he was 6 years old. It's been a secret, but he's been seen writing with his left hand in the past, and said that the franchise finally addresses this aspect and all that. Crack.com said that, the homage page of the first episode when, Homer says to Sensible Helper that he's a loser, he's pathetic, he's a Simpson. And then he's right. He's a nuisance, he's uncontrollable, he's like me. It was given the third best mark for all the episodes season 37. It's definitely the most Bart-centric episode of the season, and it's flashback that feels fresh despite the number of flashbacks we've seen over the years in the floating timeline. Personally, I think that, it was easy to see before season 37 that Homer and Bart's relationship basically is why Bart acts out and all that and is kind of awkward. So I think that it was actually pretty much a good idea to have this flash backwards and all that. So to me, it kind of makes sense and all that. But now let's take a look at the present day Simpsons. All right, so now this is a season 37 episode set in the present, like, not past, not future. But why is Kirk being a nuisance towards Homer? Well, fun. The season 37 broadcast finale was called Homer question mark a cracker bro question mark on February 15, 2026. It was the 805th episode overall. It was the broadcast season finale. Of course, Disney Plus has more episodes. So anyway, Lisa gets a freeway wildlife crossing opening. As the animals cross, they actually consume the drugs of the pharmaceutical factory on the other side of the freeway. Don't. Anyway, so Homer tries to drop off Bart at Milhouse's house without interacting with Kurt, but can't do it. Unfortunately, with the medicated animals stampeding down the street, Homer and Bart are forced to stay the night at the Van Houten home. Kirk is not allowed in the bedroom because of various medical conditions, and they actually share Kirk's crackers and said that Homer can't eat the crackers in bed because of the crumbs. A week later, Kirk actually visits The Simpsons and realizes that Homer is onto something and decides to invent a cracker that does not crumble when bitten. Find out how you eat it. Anyway, Kirk invites Homer to sell the crackers and he accepts, and the company is successful. Kirk actually is increasingly confident. Somehow Marge finds something wrong with it. And Dr. Hibbert says that Kirk has bipolar disorder, is in a manic phase. Unfortunately, he actually ran out of medication because the animals consumed it all. And then when the supply returned, he did not want to take it. Marge talks to Luann, but Luann doesn't care because she's now rich, and Kurt is actually doing something positive and says that he's actually part owner of the Calgary Flames, which Marge coldly responds, they haven't been good in a while. It feels like ever since Johnny Gaudreau's overtime winner against Dallas in 2022, the Flames have been jinxed, especially with Johnny Gaudreau's untimely passing a year and a half ago. So then, during a news interview, Kirk decides to build an aquatic rocket to transport people to the ocean floor, and the company's stock plummets. Unfortunately, Kirk then starts to get depressed, and the FBI investigates him because he took money from the company to build his rocket. kind of stupid, don't you think? Homer then has sympathy for Kirk for some reason, saying that the company would be ruined if Kirk is arrested. So Homer tries to take the blame, decides to take the blame so that his family's rich, basically sacrificing himself for the family's good. Marge tries to talk to Kirk about it, but Kirk realizes that people liked him without taking his medication. But Marge says, "Not me. You, I like you. And if you care about the friendship, you will take the medication." So anyway, he takes medication and then turns himself in and all that. Michael Stipe from REM actually sings a song about Kirk's depression. He was in that episode in season 13, Homer the Mo, when Homer becomes the bartender at Moe's Tavern until Moe changes the bar into a futuristic thingy-mabobby. And it was just like awkward and all that. But to talk about this, um, like Kirk, this isn't the first time he's had an affection with Homer, if you will. Affection in, question, in quotations, of course, because obviously I'm doing this not video. Um, there was the episode "There Will Be Buds," and the town's Pee Wee football team has a lot of concussions, and then Kirk actually says, "What about lacrosse?" Although everyone does not want to take Kirk's suggestion, and Homer gets nudged by Marge to help Kirk out. Kirk used to be a good lacrosse player, but he got injured doing a high five with a mascot, and basically his life goes downhill. That was the episode in which, Homer hates to be with Kirk, but Marge prods him to do it for the kid's sake because Lisa's now a star athlete. However, Homer can't help but sing a bad song about Kirk, and basically the friendship's ruined. Kirk then steals money and goes to the strip bar. Marge basically tells Homer to go save Kirk from the strippers and all that. And they kind of reconcile and all that. But then, of course, it reminds me of this one that Kirk's a little close to Homer. Homer doesn't completely want to blow Kirk off, all that. And Kirk's bipolar disorder that Dr. Hibbert describes, it actually makes sense why he has these weird episodes of his behavior throughout the first 36 seasons of the show. And, how he can be really depressive and all that. Well, I mean, dude, he got separated from Luann. He had to live at a place that was known for depressed men taking their lives and all that. And he had partial custody of Millhouse. He actually got pity custody one time from Luann. Unfortunately, though, he had to have his pants repossessed. But yeah, this actually makes sense. And Kirk realizes that people liked him without him. Like Kirk was very downtrodden. Everyone stomped on him, even Luann. Like Luann, I think, married Kirk because she didn't want Kirk to be happy. Kirk was not happy with anyone. He had nobody. And I think she kind of did it for Millhouse's sake, too. So, anyway, that was the episode well, anyway, Bubba Blabber gave it 8 out of 10, saying that the depiction of Kirk's bipolar disorder was actually pretty good and all that. It made sense given his past behavior. All that. This episode also shows Homer's responsible side, something uncommon for him. He tries to calm Kirk down on TV and even offers to take the blame for the investment charges. He actually ignores Kirk's behavior but then realizes it. Because Homer pretty much is seen as being selfish and stupid, jerk-ass Homer style. But he realizes he needs to take the bullet for his family. He wants his family to be successful, so he was willing to take the blame. Comicbook.com said it was the best episode, season 37. It says the great friendship between Homer and Kirk, their history is a great effect. They both realize that their future is good and all that, and intense and everything. It was pretty impressive. It actually was nominated for the Primetime Emmy Award. So anyway, that's the present. Now we got to talk about the future. Okay, and now we get to this image of the future of Marge trying to block out noise, Lisa and Bart having problems, Homer yelling, the cat, Santa's Little Helper, and Snowball 2 hissing at each other, and Maggie with drums and singing, with the couch being there. I don't know why you put the couch in the kitchen. But anyway, hormonal activity was the 11th episode of season 37 on December 14th, 2025. It's all about hormones and all that. So anyway, they go with the flash forward that 5 years into the future, Bart at 15 and Lisa at 13 are dealing with teenage hormones. Lisa has terrible acne and Bart eats all the food. So Bart decides he wants to drive the car. I mean, 5 years in the future, 15, you're a little too, aren't you too young? Anyway, and then he wants to take the car. And then Maggie whimpers, and Marge tells Lisa, Maggie, you got over a massive case of laryngitis. Rest your voice. However, Maggie basically yells, saying that, don't let Bart drive. Everyone's giving us fingers. And Marge forbids Bart from driving the car. And it was just shocking because we kind of figured that for almost every episode that Maggie tries to speak, they prevented it and all that. There's some kind of comedic timing, but no, Maggie is voiced by Lindsay Lohan. Yes, that Lindsay Lohan. Anyway, Marge tries to encourage Lisa to perform again. Lisa starts to get a little nervous. I mean, Lisa was a saxophone prodigy, but somehow she lost her confidence. I don't know what the hell happened. And actually gives Lisa a package for her first period. However, at Luann's house, Marge's friends discuss experiencing perimenopause. They describe their symptoms, and Marge is told to take Botox. So Marge has symptoms and says that Bart's comic books and all that supports a robot with large breasts, which horrifies her. But Homer says it's better than adult films and all that. So, yeah, terrible. And then Marge realizes what's happened here. She's becoming old and is irritable hearing her children complain and all that. And of course, that's the scene in that photo. And even Maggie starts singing about how she's going to be a flower girl at Ned's wedding and all that. So, anyway, yeah, she becomes a flower girl at Ned's wedding to this woman named Pam and all that. And starts banging a drum and all that. It's akin to Bart's, that episode, the flashback episode, when Lisa was born, Bart that does the pots and pans. I am so great. I am so great. Everybody likes me because I am so great. It was kind of funny like that. Marge tries to get out of this mess as everyone is arguing with each other. Homer decides to take charge to calm everyone down. Marge decides to take the Botox that Luann and family tried to get her to do. But Lisa calls her a hypocrite. Marge then finds adult films on Bart's tablet. She fears that he's going to be someone who objectifies women, such as an incel. So she decides to ban electronic screens from the house and all that. Well, of course, Marge has a good reason to worry about Bart and all that. Although Homer says that, he's just awkward towards girls and all that. At least Bart shows interest in females, unlike the alternate timeline that Bart actually has a homosexual relationship with Milhouse. Whatever. So anyway, she actually gets estrogen cream to handle her symptoms. And then Homer decides to buy the smart refrigerator to buy food when they run out. And Marge actually has sex with Homer. Unfortunately, though, Homer is given erectile dysfunction medication and makes him aggressive. So they prepare for Ned's wedding to Pam. Bart's the videographer, and Lisa is the wedding singer. Marge and Lisa bicker at each other like almost always during seasons 1 to 37. Lisa says that she's handling her changes well because she dealt with her first period by herself. Marge finds out that Bart is using the smart refrigerator to watch adult films and destroys it. Homer and Marge basically destroy things and they're off to the wedding. One tiny problem though, Marge and Homer can't drive. Lisa's too young, so they have to have Bart drive, although Maggie tries desperately to tell him no way. Bart swerves in and out. Basically, what the heck is going on? Is he trying to kill somebody? So anyway, they arrive at the church. Lisa Maggie realizes that her flower girl stuff is gone, and then is forced to throw potato chips instead of flowers. So anyway, at the wedding reception, Homer decides to take Marge's testosterone to calm himself down, and actually gives a heartfelt toast to Ned instead of the scheming one he was hoping to do. Filming the reception, Bart actually talks to her awkwardly, and Marge has her fears relieved. She decides to apologize to Lisa and saying that she does not have to perform. But then Lisa realizes how bad Marge has it, so she decides to sing and play the Pina Colada song on a Fender Esquire. So this was the sixth Future Theme Simpsons episode and all that. It was given 8.5 out of 10. He liked the examination of common life problems through the lenses of the show's characters, and even highlighted Lindsay Lohan's performance as Maggie and them giving Maggie a voice for the first time in 37 years. Like, whatever. Yes, we all know about Elizabeth Taylor saying that one word, daddy, for Maggie. They try to make Maggie talk, and Maggie talks behind their back and all that. He actually, the guy who did Bob, the 8.5 out of 10 says he hated flash forward episodes because he did not like to see the Simpsons family at older ages. If I could remember the future themed episodes, well, I know there's one about there's a Christmas episode in which Bart has to take possession of his two boys from Jenda. Future drama, I think that's the one when Lisa and Bart are graduating high school together and all that because Lisa's graduating 2 years early and all that, and Bart's problems with Jenda. Um, there's that one episode, the season 36 finale, in which Marge technically, quote unquote, dies. There's another episode with Bart and Jenda in the future that Bart takes a thing trying to erase his memories of Jenda. There's two more I can't remember. Nevertheless, you know, people liked Lohan's performance, the commentary about women's health research, and Flanders finding love again. The guy who did that season 37 list says it's not exactly the best episode we've seen about the future, as it doesn't focus on Bart and Lisa's future, but it has to show its current identity. Each character is a natural extension of themselves, and there are plenty of funny sequences and all that, and there's potential for more stories. So that's just basically how they put it in. It's a pretty good philosophy, but in the end, the Simpsons tried to go past, present, and future in season 37. It worked, and it didn't work as well. So anyway, I know this is a long episode. Talking about 3 episodes is not the easiest, and I had to use Wikipedia to get the stuff because I didn't really watch them. But nevertheless, that's it. So we're done this one. Next week, we go to season 14. We go to the 302nd episode. Shh. Fox says it's the 300th. That's right. What Fox said was the 300th episode, which was the 302nd episode. But this was a good episode after all. Bart gets emancipated from Homer, Tony Hawk cameos, and there's a lot of things going on. We're going to be talking about the season 14 episode, Barting Over, next Saturday. Anyhow, I'm Jeff Diamond. Adieu.